Edward Surratt remains the #1 suspect in multiple murders spanning across Ohio and Pennsylvania, and he is now serving multiple life sentences in a Florida prison. But who is Edward Surratt? Where did he come from? Where was he raised? And what might have caused him to allegedly have committed multiple brutal murders across several states?
Come down the valley with me. Come down where darkness came to be. Come down, the story's still told. The night the shotgun slayer took hold. Come down the valley with me. No stranger thing has happened, you see. Come down, so brazen and bold. The night the shotgun slayer took hold.
6th Avenue, in the Plant 11 section of Aliquippa, my family had a grocery store, typical corner grocery store. I think Eddie lived, as I recall, probably maybe 5-6 blocks away, but heading toward the other side of Plant 11. And in between was Jones Elementary School. And all the kids, whether you're on one side or the other, we went to Jones School. 40s is when I started school. And that's when I first met Ed. I mean, he was obviously intelligent. Now, he tended to be a little bit extroverted and stuff like that, but but he was likable. I always liked him and he liked me.
Born in Aliquippa on August 8, 1941, Edward Arthur Surratt was the only child of Arthur and Anna Mae Surratt.
Can you see a serial killer in a child? Not at all. What you're really looking for in a child is the development of antisocial behavior, of lying easily and for no particular purpose, of cruelty possibly to animals or to other kids that's unmotivated. We have some idea of callous disregard if they hear about somebody getting hurt and they have no sensitivity to that, no concern or care, especially if they've been part of that. So you're really looking for a specific type of antisocial behavior that's indicative of a kid at risk for becoming an adult psychopath. That won't necessarily make them a criminal, it won't make them a killer, it won't make them a serial killer. But those are the kinds of behaviors we look at when we see a child who is at risk of becoming a dangerous person.
You don't know everything about people, but I think he was doted upon. And you could see that really from an early age. He was always well-dressed. I'm talking about 1st, 2nd, 3rd grade. His mother made sure he was well-dressed.
Originally natives of Georgia, Arthur and Anna Mae became respected members of the Aliquippa community. Arthur owned and operated a garbage collection business that served the area.
I thought he was a fairly wealthy man. I don't recall him saying much. He was just a hard, nose to the grindstone kind of guy. I know my parents knew them well, and he was a well-respected individual. I moved after 7th grade. I moved to Center Township. Started to lose touch of it, but I then regained it in high school for a time. Now, Eddie, there's a void there. He should have graduated with me in 1958. I was the class of '58. Now, I knew some things happened around then because he didn't graduate high school with the rest of us in '58.
In 1959, Edward Surratt was charged with his first count of loitering and prowling. In 1960, that charge was followed by another loitering and prowling charge, but in this case, he also broke the arresting officer's nose.
A paraphilia is culturally defined as a sexual perversion or deviance where a person becomes aroused by an object that is not typically culturally accepted, or a situation or a type of person. So the person develops it in secret because it's something that is shameful and they're not about to give it up. If they are caught out and told not to do this again, they'll do it again, they'll just do it more secretly because it's a strong urge. And the more they indulge, the stronger it gets and the more it becomes an addiction. What you're seeing with the development of a paraphilia as the sexual urge becomes more intense into adolescence, they want this joyride with their own body. And so if looking in windows is the thing that is most intriguing to them, they will keep doing that, and then that's not enough, because now the brain kicks in. And the brain is starting to develop an addictive process, and that addiction always needs more intensity, more often, more challenging, more interesting. So looking in a window isn't enough. Now they got to get inside. Once inside, they begin to feel more powerful over the person in a way that they didn't feel outside. When you're outside looking inside, yes, there's a certain amount of power because they don't know you're there and you can watch what they're doing. But when you're inside a person's house, it's like you're in their life and they don't know. Or if they do know, that's even better, because now you've held them hostage. That power surge now begins to become part of the paraphilia.
Surratt graduated from Aliquippa High School in 1960 and briefly attended Youngstown State University from September 1962 until June of 1963. He joined the United States Army in 1964 and received an honorable discharge in August 1965. He then enters the Army Reserves. Surratt's father passed away from lung cancer a few months before in June 1965. While passing through Fort Dix in 1965, Surratt runs into his old friend, Wayne LIPECKY.
I was a medic, and part of our duties was to process troops coming into the service and leaving the service. So one day, who comes into our clinic? Eddie Surratt. I have my name tag on. He has his on. He looks at me, I look at him, I says, Eddie. He says, Wayne. And we start talking about old times and everything. We ended up going to have a beer. As I recall, we went to the NCO club and had a beer, sat around and talked about old times, etc. He was same old Eddie Surratt, joking around, recalling old times.
While in the Army, Surratt took a basic Army chaplain course and became a chaplain's assistant.
I remember him saying, he said, you can't believe it, I'm a chaplain's assistant. And then he laughed. Because he was devilish, you know, he was a devilish kind of guy, but nothing to indicate he was harmful. But when he said that, I said, chaplain's assistant.
After his discharge in 1965, Surratt attempts to keep his father's business running, but the company eventually fails. A day after his obligation to the Army Reserves ends, Surratt joins the Marine Corps in 1966. Pennsylvania State Police note that he trained and served as an amphibian track crewman until his discharge in September 1970.
Some of the things that were said at that time, again, this is all hearsay, is that he left the Army, joined the Marines later, and he was in some terrible firefights over there.
The Vietnam War was a very peculiar war. It was a constant sense of tension and danger because you didn't know where the enemy was or who they were going to be. You're sending teenagers in, 18, 19, and they're watching their buddies get blown up, and they have to help identify them. They're growing up very fast and in the most traumatized way possible. They're seeing horrific things, and they're always scared. Their bodies are in this constant state of trauma and tension. A person who is carrying paraphilias into this with them, and now they've been called on to actually kill somebody. They can have any number of reactions to that, like it's a horrible, okay, it's my duty, it's okay, or it's really exciting.
1 month after returning to the United States, he marries a woman named Afia. During this time, Surratt is employed by several trucking companies as a driver. In March 1973, he is arrested for sodomy, abduction, and enticement of a 13-year-old boy in Virginia Beach. Surratt isn't sentenced until a year later, in 1974, when he's found guilty of all offenses except the abduction charge. Though it is unclear how much time Surratt served for his Virginia Beach crimes, he is let out in 1976 and racks up a slew of traffic violations before returning to Aliquippa in 1977. And soon after, the killings start. Join us on the next episode of Notorious, where we examine the psyche of our alleged killer. What information can be gleaned from the crime scenes? And what was his motive for allegedly taking the lives of his victims?